Come on in the room. Come on in the room. I'm so excited today. I have my best friend in the whole wide world with me, and I'm so excited to give this very special announcement about a great transition that's going on in his life. No, he's not Abraham that's 99 years old and about to have a baby, but he is about to give birth to a new baby. Yeah. And we're here to talk to Pastor Anthony Wilcots, my best friend in the whole entire world. We were roommates in seminary, and we were like brothers then, and we're brothers now. And so I'm just so excited about what you're about to do, Tony, especially doing this post-pandemic new normal world where people are trying to find new spiritual places to land and begin their spiritual lives. And it's very difficult to connect with credible pastors that you don't have any experience with. And so you ask the question, why should we believe this preacher over another preacher? He's starting something new. And I want to let everyone know, you and I were roommates in seminary, and you're seminary trained, but more than that, you've been preaching the gospel since you were a teenager.
Yes, sir.
And you've pastored multiple churches. And Tony, so I just want to just let you talk about what you're doing and the name and all of that.
Thank you, Dane. I'm so proud to be here, proud of what God is doing through you. You were just recognized by the institution where we went to school, was given a prestigious award, and had the pleasure of speaking on behalf of one of the premier professors there, Dr. Grizzle. And so I want to begin by saying how proud I am of you, and I second what ORU has said about you. So thank you for this time. I'm so excited, Dana, and I believe that God is saying there is a need for new. You asked for a theme earlier, and that leaped in my spirit. New. There is a need for new wine. There's a need for new. I have been at Bible days all my life. My father pastored there almost 50 years. He asked me if I'd come home from New Jersey to pastor the church, and I said I would. And it's been a beautiful experience. Not everything has been easy, but maybe 7 years ago, a little better, the Lord began to speak to me about a shift, something new. And as I wrestled with it, we're not always comfortable with change, but when you hear the voice of God and you know the voice of God, there was this Abrahamic call to leave where you were, leave your kindred, leave your custom, leave your culture, leave. And I heard the voice of God saying, go, I'm going to meet you in Katy. I want you to go to Katy. And so we have set out to do that. This is so fresh that we're still looking for property. But we're going to the YMCA, the Chapman YMCA, the first Sunday in April. I believe that's April 2nd. And so I am excited. Our congregation is in the logistics mode of this transition, getting chairs and a PA system, a mobile this, a mobile that. And so there's a lot of new bonding, sense of excitement. So we're thrilled about this. Yes. And I certainly appreciate you giving me this time to talk about this wonderful, exciting. I have to say there's some some nervousness involved too, but I'm so looking forward to it.
Well, Tony, I've gotten the opportunity to experience the hand of God on your life firsthand. You were there with me. You would frequent my church, Praise Tabernacle, in Austin, Texas. So you were right there on the side helping God grow that church. But now I also saw you take a church that was with a handful of people in Elizabeth, New Jersey.
Wow.
I went into that church with you for the first time.
You
The
sure
first
did.
time you went in
Sure
it,
did.
I went in it with you.
How did it happen? You were even there.
You told me that they want me to take this church, and you said, Dane, you need to go with your boy. I said, yeah, I want to go. And you told me, I want to see what you sense. And when we went, and I sensed that, yes, I said, Tone, you would do well here.
You
I
said
would
that.
die
I
the
remember
death
those
of-
words. I remember those words.
yeah.
You said, I would die in here, but you would do very well.
That's what I said. And you took that church from a fledgling church that was aging. Pastor had gone on,
That's right.
and they needed a new pastor. And you took that church, and you grew that church. It was a traditional Baptist church. You made a Baptist Costal church. You had horns and every kind of
Lord,
instrument
smile
in there,
Lord,
and
smile.
that place became so vibrant. You had multiple services. People were coming from throughout New York and New Jersey. And I watched you buy almost the entire block. And I was also with you when you had to make a decision about returning home. And we talked about it, and we actually talked about it when Dad was in the hospital.
That's true.
We went to see him in the hospital together,
That's true.
and we had to have a talk about that. Yeah. And so we know that God brought you back here, and he led you here. That's what's interesting, because when we were in seminary, we would always talk about what it would be like
the same
to
city.
be in the same city. And I was in Austin,
Yeah.
and you were in New Jersey now.
Yeah.
And God told both of us to go to Houston.
Did so.
And now God is speaking to you again and telling you more specifically. Because when he told me to go to Houston, that meant Alvin.
Okay.
Then from Alvin, then I went to Houston. For you, that meant Quitman Street
That's right.
to now Katy.
Yes, sir.
That's an emerging city with wonderful new growth and a need of real solid churches. I'm sure they have a lot of churches there, but there's something that God wants you to bring to the Katy area. And your church is no longer going to be called Bible Days.
That's right.
It's like with my church, it used to be named Praise Tabernacle. But when God moved us, he changed our name to The Rock, the Reflections of Christ's Kingdom World Outreach International. And now with you, he's moving you from Bible Days to the Encounter Church.
That's right.
Tony, tell me what's unique about the Encounter Church.
I so anticipate the encounter. I want, Dana, the people to encounter God. I want people to have an experience with God. This post-pandemic moment that we live in, people are in need of a real encounter with God. That may be glossolalia speech. That may be the laying on of hands. That may be a miracle, some healing. That may be a prophetic word. That may be a fervent worship service, a passionate sermon. Our efforts, Dane, is built on the deep Pentecostal roots that my father was so passionate about. I'd like to build on those roots, but bring to it a crisp, modern look and feel that appeals to a larger crowd, a larger audience. I'm interested in being me, the gifts and resources that God has blessed me with, but my interest is that crowd, 25 to 45, that Dana are moving toward retirement, some of them. Some of them are starting out a family, single mothers. Some of them are on their way to school. I know what those experiences are about. Some have families and have been married for 20 years, 25 years. I know what that experience is about. And there is much from the scriptures that can be phrased and distributed such that lives are changed and they come into this encounter with God. That's in my opinion going to be the uniqueness of the Encounter Church in Katy. I want to be who I am, and I want God to show up and show out.
Well, I know he will, because you have a history of God showing up and showing out. We've been doing this quite some time, and that age group that you mentioned, 20 to 45, I believe that having gone around a few corners like we have, and having our own families and raising our children to adults, and we have some things that we really could help that generation with, from a spiritual perspective as well as educationally and professionally.
Yes.
So, Tony, but now, why Katy, Texas?
Katy is interesting to me. The first reason is simply because that's where God told me to go. So this was a Macedonian call, if you will.
Okay.
I didn't know much about Katy. In my prayer time after coming home, I shared with my dad. I said, Dad, God is talking to me about Katy, taking the church to Katy. And my father didn't exchange words with me. He was in the bed, sort of in his last 5 or 6 years, often in the bed, and he would take his fist and say, let's go. If that's what God is saying, let's go. We're going to put our shoulders behind the wagon and we're going to push. And so he was always an advocate. But after having done some detective work, Dana, I've learned that Katy is one of the strongest cities in America, and they have the #1 school system in the country. And so people are moving to Katy to put their kids in the schools. Athleticism is very strong. You were an athlete, Dana, coming through high school, and so football is the order of the day in Katy. They have a great basketball team, volleyball team, strong athleticism, and then the health care in the city of Katy is very strong. I'm told that there's a strong network of churches as well. I have not experienced that, but I look forward to it. And so I have gone out. We started a Bible study there, and the people were receptive. So I'm looking forward to it. Katy's an interesting place.
Well, it seems like fertile ground, but you can't go wrong when you go where God tells you to go. You go wrong when you try to figure out how God's going to do what God's going to do.
That's a mighty word.
God just wants you to be obedient and do what he asks you to do, and then he'll do the rest. So, Tony, let me ask you this. How can people support this move and this transition you're making?
We always need money. Money's always an issue. But as you've rightly assessed, where God guides, the old adage is he provides. But we need funds. Our interest is to, and you've been here, Dana, where we have to set up and break down every service, every Sunday, set up and break down. Yes. And so you need volunteers, you need people to come in who are willing to work. This kind of initiative requires some elbow grease, some willing workers, people who have a disposition to lend their resources to the effort. So we need bodies, we need volunteers. We also need expertise, marketing. This that you're helping with today, this interview is instrumental in helping us stir some interest. I'm praying that as a result of this effort, Dane, that people will hear about us and come that first Sunday, Easter Sunday, the second Sunday in April, to see what we're about, to hear the word, to come and have this encounter with God.
Now, Tony, so tell me this now, because this is exciting. Whenever someone follows God, whenever someone hears the voice of God and then obeys it, like Abram, God said, go to a place where I'll show you. Didn't have all the details, didn't know exactly what was what, who was who, but he obeyed God. And at the end of the day, the Bible says, and Abraham was a friend of God, because not only could Abraham trust God, but God could trust Abraham. And when you're being obedient like this, then God is able to trust you in these kinds of transitions, because you're willing to risk what you have in order to get what God has for you. And that's one of the greatest challenges for people, is to let go of the old in order to get the new.
And you know all about that in terms of all the initiatives you've been responsible for. I remember, and of course you said that at the top, you're leaving Austin to go to Alvin. What a faith step that was.
Yeah.
And in like fashion, I've done something similar in that we sold our campus there to go to Katy, and we've not found what we're looking for yet. And it's like that passage in the Psalms. I think it's Psalms 32, where the psalmist says that they were groping to find God, and he declared he was not far off. So I feel like I'm I feel like I'm groping, but I think there is something that happens in this faith effort that you don't know all the details, as you rightly assessed, but you're groping. But the reality is that as you grope, you sense you're not far off. God is near.
Yeah, well, I believe that, Tony. I believe that you're right in the heart of God. You know, you and I, when we say best friends, we don't make real key decisions, important decisions in our life without bouncing that off. And so I've been to Katy with you a couple of times. One to look at some land, then the second time to look at a church.
Yeah.
And so you've done your due diligence, and you are so convinced about what God has told you to do, even though you couldn't find a physical place. And we talked about this, is that if God tells you where to go and you can't find what you're looking for, then you start with what you have.
Yes, sir.
And right now you're being obedient to God, and the people that are following you are going to experience the hand of God. So, Tone, can you tell them where your services are going? Look in your camera and tell them where your services are going to be held, and tell them why they should come.
We are going to be at the Mark Chapman YMCA at 1350 Main Street. 1350 Main Street. We're right off 10. You can almost, not quite, but you can almost see the YMCA from 10 West. So I want to encourage you to come. I'm going to be in this moment, this experience, this time with God. I'm seeking his face about a special message. The first Sunday in April at 10 o'clock, at 10 o'clock sharp. I want you to come and be with us. We're going to be there every Sunday until God says something different. We're going to be there Easter Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. And I want to ask those of you who are in Katy or in the regions roundabout to meet us, the Encounter Church, at 1350 Main Street in Katy, Texas. It's going to be a wonderful experience. I know you're going to be blessed, and you're going to want to come back and be a part of this new experience, this encounter with God.
Well, Tony, I hope everyone that's in the Katy area and surrounding areas and those that really appreciate your ministry, that they join you at the Mark Chapman YMCA, 1350 Main Avenue, Katy, Texas, April the 2nd, 10 a.m. for an encounter
Yes, sir.
with God. Now, don't forget to share, follow, and like. Don't forget to share, follow, and like at Dr. Dana Carson, at Pastor Wilcots.
Yeah.
Now, please share, follow, like. Well, Tone, it's been a blessing, man. It's been a blessing, my brother. I'm looking forward to seeing some great things.
Thank you,
Thanks
Dana.
for stopping by, Tony.
I appreciate you having me, Dana, and we're celebrating all that God is doing through you. I don't know if those who are listening are familiar with the tremendous effort you did with the youth area here next to your church. We were part of that, and I'm just thrilled at what God is doing. For those of you that don't know, my friend is going to be preaching for Bishop Jake's leadership conference, and that's coming up real soon. And we just believe God's doing something tremendous among this dynamic duo.
Yes. Well, thank you, Tony. I appreciate it. And I believe God's hand is on our lives. They used to call us Jonathan and David.
They did.
In seminary.
They did.
And
they said we looked alike.
they said we looked alike. Some people would call you Dana and call me Tony.
They did.
So you know they were under the Spirit.
Or blind.
God bless you. Thanks, Tone.
Thank you, Dane. Love you.
Love you.